Our next keynote speaker is a very, very busy guy. He is a member of the European Commission Sustainable Transport Forum. Not only that, he is chairman of the eMobility Working Group at Eurelectric, which is the Federation of the European Electricity Industry. And if that wasn't enough, he is also the co-founder of Virta, which is the second largest eMobility operator or eMobility platform in Europe. So everyone, this speaker is really in an ideal position to give us his view of what eMobility might look like in 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome once again to our stage Elias Po. Elias. Hello.
Thank you so much for the nice introduction. So yes, my name is Elias Po. I'm the co-founder of a company called Virta. This is maybe my 7th time in ICNC conference. Almost every year I've been also on stage. So let me also spend a few moments on thinking about the history of what's happened in the previous years. When this conference was first started years ago, we were maybe 7 people in this red building that at the moment is serving as a speakers area for the conference. Already then we saw that e-mobility was the big thing. In Finland, actually, there were already 50 EVs. I could say that I knew all the EV drivers in Finland at that time. So we were kind of weird people, but we had a good belief on what we wanted to do. We wanted to partner with the best players in the industry, and that's why I came to the first ICNC conference. And I think still ICNC as a conference is the leading conference in the EV charging area, and also Hubject is the leading hub in the area of EV roaming. Why is this important? I'm coming to that in a sec. So Virta, what we are maybe the number 2 player in Europe as a platform, maybe bigger, maybe even 1, maybe number 3, depending on the calculations. The point anyways is that we are a charging platform. We don't own any infrastructure. We just serve players who want to make EV charging as part of their business. And this is where we began. So my headline is Gravity-Based Market Development, how eMobility 25 may look like. I am starting with a little bit of history, maybe provoking you a little bit, and then I've picked 2 or 3 things that I believe are the greatest drivers of e-mobility market until 25. So, to provoke a little, we had a transportation forum 2 days ago in Finland, and the Minister of Transport and Communications told us that he believes in electrification of mobility and electrification of everything as energy trend. But he also warned that already Lenin said that Soviet power together with electrification is the best road to communism. So we have to be really careful. But he also reminded it's the best road to capitalism. What is the history of electrification? When Edison discovered that he could make light with electricity, with a lamp, the society thought that this is a really, really important innovation, actually the most important in the world. And that's why the society took over the invention. All the energy companies in the world are originally either state-owned or municipality-owned. So electrification became a kind of a public commodity. At the same time, Mr. Henry Ford was inventing a car, and the car and the gasoline ecosystem became market-driven activities. And this history is still somewhat visible. Energy industry is very much about the stability and reliability of providing energy, while the car industry is very much about marketing, business, consumer experience, brand, and so on. And now we're in the phase of combining the 2 converging industries to create something very new for both mobility and energy. Policy is driving maybe the biggest role in this change. we would like to call this market-driven regulation, but actually it's a regulation-driven market at the moment. I hope we will turn it around in the next few years. But what is the situation now? We are getting so much helicopter money in the industry. We have central bank instruments, we have green funding, we have all kind of packages that, quoting our Minister of Transport, politics have taken over market forces. And there we have to be really careful. Personally, I believe that all big changes in the world are nowadays driven by businesses. If you think internet, if you think digitalization in general, if you think mobile phones, if you think climate change, everything is actually driven by the companies who provide the services, who then meet those goals. At the moment, the regulation itself is very much about the cars and not anymore that much about the energy side. But the regulation is now the policy instrument that is really changing this industry, and for good. Now it's time for us as an industry also to be together and think of what we really want to do. I spoke with my friend from the oil industry lobby who said that you should be more aligned in EV business. You all have your own ideas, your own goals, your own story to the politicians. In oil industry, we first decide what we think of things, and then we align, and then globally we have the same agenda. So I think this is pretty important for the EV business also, to get the momentum, use the momentum for growth. The second thing about the regulation that is interesting and happening at in Europe, as we know, in the Fit 55 packages, we have a lot of regulation related to e-mobility. It is pretty much now aligned that the AFI directive will be in the future AFI regulation. Regulation meaning it's word by word implemented in every country. But if we look at the local legislation, local regulation, that is not what is happening. We are not going towards a single market of EV charging business, but we are rather having local regulations, whether it be ICNC in Germany or bringing payment terminals to each charger and so on. We're bringing a lot of these local legislations, and this is something that I would be a bit worried as an industry, because we want to make big businesses. The more aligned we are on the European level, the better business environment we have in Europe, and the better we can compete with other continents, other big businesses. So, when we look at the market development, what is happening? This is my first thesis. The natural market dynamics polarize the charging market between infrastructure ownership and digital platforms. If we look at big companies in this industry, it seems that they are walled gardens. They are doing everything. They have charging points. They sell charging points. They operate their platform. They do all the things in between. They even have their own IT systems, so on, so on. Will it be the future? What is the most cost-efficient way to operate the future? I think when we look back at the history of the Henry Ford's car, the gasoline was distributed in bottles in every kiosk. Then the logistics and the efficiency of logistics was the greatest reason to form gasoline stations, because we wanted to reduce cost and implement better business environment for the gasoline sales. Now the same logic is happening in EV charging, but just the opposite way. We are going back to the bottles, we are going back to homes, and there we don't need only incumbents driving the business. So if we think of how the market will look in the near future, we see that professional EV charging businesses, major energy petrol companies, automotive OEMs, they're the ones who are trying to build as big as entity as possible around themselves. But they're very much in a minority if we look at the long tail concerning of cities, parking operators, retail, real estate, workplaces, home. If you run a business operation, would it be very strange if you said that, yeah, we are building our own CRM system, or we are building our own HRM system, or we are building our own ERP system? It doesn't happen nowadays. Digital platforms make sure that that's already there it's available for everybody, and we're sharing the cost, making it more efficient than building your own. And that's what this long tail is doing. Most of the players in the EV charging want to have it easy, end-to-end, one-stop shop, and they want to concentrate in building their own business. If they're a city, they serve their inhabitants. If they're parking operators, they serve their parking customers. If they're retail, they serve their retail customers. They don't want to operate EV charging business. They just want it to be there and bring some profit of the future. So, why is it important that we have the long tail? Isn't it enough that we have some dumb charging at homes, and then there are big players who work like gasoline stations and bring the EV charging to the public roads? My claim is that it's not enough. Why is it not enough? Because we want to also disrupt the energy sector, not just the mobility sector. If we look at the energy sector, what's happening in the energy sector, the more sustainable energy we get into the energy system, the more we need flexibility. And the cheapest, easiest way to bring flexibility is EV batteries. And it's not possible to converge these batteries into aggregated system unless we have the EV platforms, the hubs, to take care of that. Another important factor is the cost again. If we have, let's say, our company has 1,000 business-to-business customers. If they all made one-by-one connections with each other, that would mean 1 million contracts, 1 million different contracts. And that's why companies like us, as nodes, or Object, as a node, are reducing the cost remarkably to make a more efficient system. And why the efficiency is important? Because the EV driver is always eventually paying for the EV charging. Eventually, the consumer is always paying. Now we come to the gravity. What we mean by gravity? Everybody has heard about the Einstein's E is equal to mc to the second. So energy is equal to mass times speed of light to the second. If we would look at it as a business ecosystem way, we could say that mass is equal to energy from this equation. But what this equation also says is mass is not equal to movement necessarily. And if we think movement is the impact what we are trying to make, we have to move faster. If we take very small particles, photons, they have energy, so they have the movement, but they have no mass at all. That's what kind of players we're getting in this industry more and more. Very small players who make a remarkable impact with very small capital, very small background. And then they grow back and grow big and change this world. So gravity-based ecosystem, basically, how I mean it, it's the ecosystem where everybody gets their fair share. If you're a big player, of course, the mass gives you power. If you're a small player, but you can make an impact, whether it be your technology, your end-user capabilities, or your environmental systems, whatever, it gives you kind of more gravity than the mass alone. And so in a gravity-based ecosystem, I see that everybody gets their fair share, and the precondition how it happens is that it's not regulated, but it's happening freely. And I think object kind of hubs are the very basis of this kind of ecosystem where all kinds of players get their fair share of the market, get their fair share of the business according to what they deserve as what their services are. This is maybe the fundament also to the logic of growing fastest possible way. So I could say that gravity is equal to a functioning open market. And that's what we are looking for, and that's why we are strongly supporting players like Object to provide the equal terms to all players to participate in this market. So, what should you do next? I'm talking about regulation, I'm talking about market trends, I'm talking about how the industry might be going. I would say that there are three things. First of all, do what you're best at, because the impact will be your gravity. It will be something that will build your business. You don't have to do everything by yourself in the value chain, but you can do just your share. The second thing is, do it now. The business is now growing, the market is maturing, it's not anymore very cheap to enter the market as a new player, and it will get more and more expensive. And the third thing is, think of, can you disrupt something? Because disruption always has the value. It's also said that a tenfold change in price always causes disruption. So we believe that as a digital platform, we are able to disrupt EV market together with other EV charging platforms by reducing the price of transaction made on the EV charging to 1/10-fold due to our platform capabilities of providing the same service to everybody, and you don't have to do your own platform yourself. So just as a concluding slides, we think that we are doing something right here. In order for us to succeed in our tenfold theory, we also must grow big enough that the costs related to the transactions are small compared to the volume. And that's what we are doing. We are at the moment the fastest growing EV charging business in Europe, 2 times in a row on Financial Times list. So we hope we can provide the services, the platform, and of course the ideas, thoughts, and business models for you to run your own EV charging business the most profitable way with this hyper growth we are seeing in the next few years. Thank you so much.